I think the future leader is one which is able to set a very clear vision for his team and is able to step back and empower them in order to do amazing things. The key to leadership in a progressive organisation is to set a clear vision, coach them along that journey, make sure that everybody has a very clear role within that journey, and create an environment around them that's going to enable and inspire them to get to the end point. It's absolutely critical that people enjoy the journey as well as the result. So create that high performance environment, trust in people to do amazing things, and inspire them to get there. So I think there's a couple of key things that need to happen here. I think the organisation needs to change, and I think the mindset, skills and knowledge of the individuals need to change within it. So if I talk about the organisation first, I think an organisation that will be healthy and successful and demonstrate the leadership of the future will need to create an environment that's flexible, that is innovative, that is challenging, that allows its employees to take risks and push boundaries and experiment and make errors. It's one of the predications of success. And I think it needs to change the focus away from ensuring people are trying to prove themselves to actually focusing on the value that they can add and the successes they can bring. And I think that requires fundamental change to some of the processes and systems that a lot of organisations have in place, particularly around performance management. And along with that comes the use of the right technologies, engaging the right people across an organisation, and being very curious around what you do and become a student of your business and your role, always learning. I would hope it will we will have people throughout all organisations that are prepared to step up, to innovate, have the confidence and competence to try new things. I think they also need to carry with them a great deal of authenticity and empathy. And I think the most impressive leaders are always the most humble. Leadership in itself, in the individual, is an incredibly powerful thing, but I think leadership collaboratively and working together across the organisation, across outside of that organisation and the networks and the connections, I think is the future. And if I was going to look at one particular area where leadership is very often demonstrated, which is learning and development, I think we're going to see a huge shift from traditional classroom-based learning to, I'd like to see in 2050, organisations that are using its people and technology to drive education organically, as opposed to depending on the old ways of getting people together just in a classroom. That's representative of what's happening in the world. You know, information is everywhere, information is shared and created everywhere through social means, and I think that needs to be fully leveraged in organisations so that every single person in the organisation owns the learning and leadership agenda. I think leadership per se is a set of common skills, mindsets, knowledge that everybody should have and be looking to grow and be demonstrating all the time. So I don't think leadership is exclusive to any level in an organisation, and I don't think it should be exclusive within a structure. There will be benefits of having particular focus and actually driving certain performance is about that, having that specificity and being able to grow that specialism. But I think generally you want leaders everywhere. For me, it's about the environment that you create for the individual. And so you want to, first of all, inspire. And so if you're going to build a ship, get people to long for the enormity of the sea. Don't get them to, and hire them and ask them to do certain things like collect wood or bang nails in. Get them to see the vision and buy into the inspiration of what the organisation and the role is. If you empower people, you entrust in people, and you give them a very clear vision, and you ask them constantly to challenge what it is that they're doing. So they wake up in the morning and ask themselves, would I hire myself? I'm not critiquing that. I'm asking them, where else can this go? What else can you do that's going to be different? What's the magic sauce that you can put on this? How can we take this to the next level? And coaching them through that journey. And if you liberate people and you create that environment, they will do incredible things. Wisdom of the crowd for me is an absolute core philosophy. I think if you look at what's happening in the world socially, whether it be through YouTube or Twittering, etc., everybody is wanting to share their thinking. The wisdom of crowd philosophy is all about the fact that a number of people together will come up with a greater and better solution than one individual, however much of a genius they are, sat in a room on their own. So I believe healthy individuals and healthy organisations will have a mindset that is very open and transparent, prepared to share, is looking at bouncing ideas constantly, not just within their network within the organisation, but far broader than that, across their industry and other industries. In large organisations in particular, there is a culture shift that needs to happen, and culture changes don't happen often very quickly, particularly in large organisations. So I think it needs to be a lot of OD, organisational development work, and systems thinking around, okay, I can change my immediate world, but in order to change everything else and the ecosystem around me, I need to think much more broadly than that. And I need to think around the influence model and look at how can I make sure that leaders are telling the right story, how can I make sure that there is role modelling of what we need to do as new leaders happening everywhere in the organisation. Let's make sure all the systems and processes that underpin what we're trying to do in leadership and the way we're trying to behave support those behaviours. Some of those systems and processes and people need to come at the same pace, so you can make the individual change, which I think you should do, and quickly. You also need to be cognizant of other things which may not be working at the same pace as you. The most powerful thing is creating a very compelling story as to the reason why an organisation needs to change, and obviously, you know, through data-driven decisions and through anecdotes around what other organisations are doing potentially and contrasting in the marketplace, I think can help create that compelling story. But I think the biggest influence in most organisations is their leaders, as in their senior managers, middle managers and first line managers, role modelling the types of leadership behaviour, and I think that then trickles down into the rest of the organisation. That needs to be constant, and it needs to be reinforced correctly with the right systems and structures. But for me, if you can get that right, over time the other things should naturally slot in.